This right here is a crisp, refreshing Australian pale ale because sometimes you just need beer-flavoured beer. Let's show you how we made it. It's been a while since I've made a beer-flavoured beer. I've got a lot of weird things on tap, courtesy of trying to produce good content for you guys on this channel, but sometimes you just want a beer-flavoured beer, and that's kind of exactly what this is. Everyone's got their house recipe of the thing that they always have on tap. This is just my Australian pale ale. It's a really, really easy drinking, simple beer that tastes like beer, which is refreshing in a world of really, really weird stuff. So let's get this stuff crushed, shall we? We are running with, I believe it's 95.5% Australian pale ale malt, 4.5% medium crystal malt. That's it. It's a super simple grain bill for a really simple beer. Grain stuck. So my my grain mill's getting a touch old, and sometimes it gets stuck in reverse, and then it doesn't really. Are we rolling? Nope. Hang on. There we go. Hey. We run our grain mill at a 1mm gap, which is about the width of a credit card. I know I've said this in other videos, but for all new viewers who haven't crushed grains before, start with like a credit card between your rollers and adjust from there as you see fit. Let's mash. We are gonna mash for 1 hour at 65 degrees Celsius. So we're going for a fairly fermentable beer profile because we want this to finish, you know, relatively dry. It's not meant to be a thick beer, it's meant to be quite light and crisp. And the grain makeup with this is, look, we're gonna have a light crystal body going on. It's going to be there a little bit to balance, you know, the bitterness and balance the light hoppiness. But really the star of the show when it comes to the grains here is literally just providing a slightly malty, light-bodied beer. That's just super, super easy to drink on a very hot day, as we very often have here in Australia. This is 30 litres, by the way, of strike water. So that's, I'm always wrong with this. I'm gonna take a punt. Is that 8 gallons? I don't know. Odin will put the things around here somewhere. But yeah, that's kind of the gist with this one. Oh, also, I've already, I can't speak English. What is happening today? I've already added the salts and fully dissolved them. So if you're new to using brewing salts, just remember that sometimes they can take a bit to dissolve. So, you know, run the pump or like keep it in there for like half an hour or something and really just make sure everything's dissolved before you start doing your mashing. All right, it's nice. It's really nice actually having a mash-in day with a significantly lighter grain bill. So much easier.
Yeah. There's gonna be no problems.
No, famous last words. I mean, if something goes wrong, I guess you're gonna cut to like all hell breaking loose. But now this is kind of one of those beers that you can just brew on autopilot. At least this is my beer that I can brew on autopilot. I think everyone has one. That's the one they've made so many times, and you might tweak the recipe here and there, but for the most part, you're basically kind of making the same thing time and again.
How similar is this recipe to our last pale ale, that Aussie pale ale?
It is fairly similar. The grain bill is lighter from memory on this one, so it's finishing with less ABV. This one should be finishing around 4.8%. From memory, I think that other one on the channel was like 5.5 or 5.7 or something, which is just a bit higher than I'd like for like a session pale ale. The flavor profile should be relatively similar. The hops are all kind of similar. All Australian hops are gonna go into this, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. And I think the one big difference is just that this one is a lighter, easier body. The body on that original Australian pale ale finished with a little higher gravity than probably what I wanted. So this one should finish somewhere around 1.007, 1.008. So pretty dry finish for a beer.
Being very anal, man.
Anal?
Don't want any dough balls.
It's just so satisfying mixing something that's so easy to mix. Like some of the other videos we've done recently have been like really, really heavy grain bills on like IPAs and stouts and all that kind of thing. And this grain bill is just so light in comparison to how much water we're using. It's just, it's satisfyingly easy.
Smells good.
It does smell, it smells great. It smells like fresh baked bread. That is one of the things that I do like with Australian ale malt. It probably leans more towards the English style than the American style. So generally speaking, Australian pale ale malt is just a little bit more biscuity, a little bit more bready, maybe a touch more nutty than its American counterpart, which tends to have a cleaner finish. I like that in my beers. I like it to have that little bit of malt character going on. Ow! Jesus! And that's why you wear gloves. Getting a bit warm in here. All right, we can shut that off. I'm gonna let this drain out a little bit, then we're gonna add our top filter, our top screen. So this, again, is not necessary. If you've got a mash tun that doesn't have one of these things, totally fine. I've just got one that's got a recirculating pump, and then it's got an overflow pipe straight down the center, so that when it does start to overflow, that extra work can just flow straight down the middle and back to the pump, back to the heating elements. It just makes it a little more consistent in my opinion, but it's not really necessary. We have one, so we're using it. Just gotta let this water drain a bit so I can pop it on. All right, let's pop this on in down there. Ouch, that is hot. All right, pop the little stopper on the top and we're good. So I'm doing this for the shot. I am gonna put a lid on here and recirculate this properly, but in 1 hour, we're gonna come back and then we're gonna get cracking with sparging and boiling. So we'll see you in a second. I forgot to point out earlier that we are doing a mash out step. So basically raising the temperature up to 77 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes. This stops all enzyme activity and makes our beer a little easier to sparge. We've now finished with our mash out, so it is time to start sparging. We've already added all of our brewing salts and our phosphoric acid into here. So this thing's ready to go. It's basically following the same parts per million as what's in the mash tun, just with slightly different volumes because there's slightly different volume of liquid up in here. But this sparge water is sitting at 77 degrees Celsius and we're gonna sparge with 30 liters of it. So actually the same amount as the mash, just, you know, dead space and stuff. All right, let's start running this over the top. If you're not familiar with brewing or you've never done sparging before, it's basically just like running some extra hot water over your grain bed, kind of squeezing out the sponge, so to speak, because all these grains still have a bunch of sugars trapped in there. So the way to get all those sugars out is to run regular water over the top, and it's kind of like, you know, wringing out a sponge and getting all the soap suds out. We're getting out all those extra sugars that we want in our beer. This is gonna take a minute. Ordinarily, I would use the smaller boiler, the one over there, for doing this job automatically with its inbuilt pump. But obviously, there's a different video going on over there, which we would have released already. Yeah, that's the Easter Stout, guys.
Transition?
Transition.
Transition? What's the transition?
Ah, damn.
Shit.
Okay, let me. Well, that's a boil over. I wasn't paying attention. And remember earlier when you said nothing's gonna go wrong today? Damn it!
Oh, that's beautiful though. That's boiling.
So annoying though. Such a waste.
We're just about to take that off as well.
Bugger.
Oh well.
All right, done. Minor disaster averted. We are now adding our initial bittering hops. So this is 10 grams of Pride of Ringwood, which is a distinctly Australian hop, made quite famous here by some of our larger commercial breweries, but it's still, you know, very Australian tasting hop because all Australian beers have that certain flavor that makes them taste Australian because of this particular hop, at least all the old school commercial ones. So we're using that, and now is as good a time as any to take a gravity reading. Let's find out what we're working with after sparging. All right. We are at 1.044. 1.044. Okay, that's good. So I reckon we will finish 1.047 or 48, which should give us, will probably give us a 5% beer, I'm guessing, if my maths is right. I need to start my clock. I haven't started. I think I've been talking for about a minute. Let's run with a minute. Don't do what I did. Start your clocks when your boil starts. See you in 45 minutes for, no, we won't see you then. I haven't thought any of this through. I'll see you in almost an hour. We're gonna add our final hop addition 3 minutes before the boil ends. We will add whirl flock 15 minutes before the end, but no point filming that. So we'll see you 3 minutes before end of boil. We don't remember what the transition was, but it is time to add hops. So in goes our hops with 3 minutes left in the boil. Boom. So that was 50 grams of Galaxy, 60 grams of Pride of Ringwood, and 70 grams of Topaz hops. 3 minutes, that's it. Very, very short final aroma addition because we want to emphasize all the fruitier flavors rather than taking on too much bitterness. And then we are going to start cooling this thing down with the counterflow chiller to knock it down to yeast pitching temperature. There we have it. That is, oh, better turn the heat off. That is our boil and brew day done. Let's just get this thing to cool down as quickly as possible. There was a few conversations and chats floating around different forums last time about the way that I use a counterflow. I am fully aware that the way to normally use a counterflow is to go single pass into a fermenter. There's two reasons why I do it like this, passing it back through into the boiler first. One is I want to cool down the full mass of the beer relatively quickly so that the hops stop isomerizing. Second is because this is Australia. It's hot. Our groundwater is not super cold. Therefore, it's actually quite difficult for me to do a single pass into the fermenter, and I often need to cool the full thermal mass down a little bit, and then I can do single pass. So, yes, rant over.
Scream transition.
Good a time as any to check our final gravity. Let's take it, I guess, out of what's being pumped out. All right, what are we working with here? We are at 1.048, which I think is above target. We're way above. So the target was 1.043. We've hit 1.048. Maybe instead of being a 4.8% beer, this ends up being a 5.2%. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's just not exactly what I was aiming for, but oh well. Our efficiency was through the roof, that means. And we've got, how much do we have here? We've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, I'd say about 45 liters of wort. So we boiled off quite aggressively. Hindsight, I probably should have turned off one of the elements so that we didn't get quite as much evaporation because I didn't need it for this particular beer. You know what? I might top it up. I might top this up with a bit of water. I am, yeah. I'm gonna top this up with a bit of water and bring our final gravity down. I'll be back after I do those calculations. We're gonna start with 3 liters. According to the calculators, I should be using 5 liters to dilute this down. I'd always rather do it too little than too much. I can always add more. I can't take it back after I've done it. So I'm gonna add 3 liters first. Let this all, which is just under a gallon, let this all kind of homogenize. And then in like 5 minutes, I'll take another gravity reading and see where we're at. We wound up adding 4 liters. 3 got us down to 1.045. So I've now added an extra liter, so we're at 4. And that puts us on 1.044. That's what I wanted, right? Yeah, sweeto burrito. 4 liters did it. So now we have 49 liters of wort. I am going to get this pumping over into the tank because we are now coming out at yeast pitching temperature from the other end of that. Okay, I've cut off the flow slightly, so we're definitely coming out at yeast pitch temp at single pass, and away we go. That is probably one of my favorite moments on brew day, is that first time you start to see the sight glass filling up at the bottom. I've got my brewer's vibrator again, this little thing here, hang on, there we go. Again, aquarium pump, air stone. So basically just pumping extra air into this thing so that yeast is Plenty healthy. It's got plenty of oxygen to do its thing when it kicks off at that first aggressive stage of fermentation. Whilst I'm here and about to pop this in, worth mentioning that when you dilute wort back down, you do muck around with things. Like it does change, obviously the starting gravity is a given, but it does also slightly dilute the flavor technically. It would also adjust and throw out of kilter things like IBUs as well. All that being said, I'm not fussed about it with this one because I was bringing it back to where I wanted it to be in the first place. So it doesn't really change anything, but I thought it was worth mentioning. All right. Yeast pitching time. So two things. Really quickly, I forgot to talk about the hops. The idea behind the Topaz, the Galaxy, and the Pride of Ringwood is A, they're all Australian hops, but B, Pride of Ringwood kind of gives fruity notes with some spice and earthiness, and then Topaz and Galaxy are both punching way into more fruity, citrus, and tropical fruit flavors, so all that together should make a pretty thirst quenchable beer. Now, this right here is our yeast starter. I was lazy this time. I got home very late last night and I didn't really have the chance to get this yeast starter going as early as I wanted to. I only really got this going today. So it's not fully cultured yet, but it's better than nothing. Let's whack it in. How do you want me to do this time? I can't.
Still
Hang on.
over the head.
There we go, over the head.
Up the bum.
Finger up the bum. All right. So these should still kick off relatively healthily. This was 23 grams of US 05, but we actually used Oz 05 from Brew Carryotes. So technically it makes it an Australian yeast, but I think it's actually basically based off the US 05 American yeast strain. Either way, clean fermenting and just kind of efficient, which is all I'm really looking for because I want the hops and the like subtle fruitiness and just quenchability to be front and center with this one. I'm gonna close this up, let it start fermenting. There is no dry hops with this one, so you're gonna see me in just a moment when I quickly try this beer and tell you what I think. The beer's finished, it's kegged, it's tapped, it's in a glass. They do say that beer is liquid gold, and we just wanted to actually display the color. But what does it taste like?
Tastes like a beer.
Yeah. Tastes like a beer. And that was the goal of this video, to make a beer-flavored beer. Now,
Pretty straightforward pale ale.
it's kind of just like, yeah, very, very lightly malty, not a lot of sweetness going on. There's kind of a crisp, dry finish. It's not super bitter, but it's definitely got that clean, dry finish. It's got a slight, very slight estery thing going on from the yeast.
It's a very Australian style.
It honestly just tastes like a pale ale you buy at a pub.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that tastes like. It's the thing that you get when you don't really want a lager, but you don't really want hops. That's what you'd buy. And it's super crisp, super refreshing. 4.8%, so it's very sessionable. It's just
Good on a hot summer's day.
beer-flavored beer.
Barbecue beer, mate.
Anyway, cheers guys. Thanks for watching. If you haven't, you know, you probably have if you're up to this point in the video, but don't forget to like and subscribe.
Always.
And we'll catch you guys next time. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Good beer, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, tastes like beer.